This is Peggy Ann Saltz, and this is Business of Apps, and this is our opportunity together to get to know some of the cool companies out there. And that's what I love, incidentally, about this event where I am, but also just the opportunity to get to know some new companies. Now, you're not new, but you're new to me. So Alfred Awosanya, Enterprise Account Exec at Quantum Metrics. We're definitely here with the branding.
Yes.
We're definitely set.
Yes.
You know your stuff.
Yes.
Tell us about the company.
There are a lot of tools out there different organizations, digital leaders use when it comes to analytics or trying to understand their customer behavior. With our brand, what we do is very different. So Adidas, for example, they're a large digital retailer. And when they came to us, they were using Google Analytics, they were using Adobe Analytics, and they were using those tools because they wanted to understand what exactly are our users experiencing when they're coming on our websites, what's preventing them from checking out. And those tools were great. They did their function. They told them that there was drop-off at the checkout page or there's drop-off at the product browsing page. But what those tools didn't tell them was, why is there drop-off? And that's exactly what Quantimetric does. We actually tell you not only that there's drop-off happening on this page or on this part of your mobile app, but we also tell you why that is. Is it because users are trying to scroll down, but they can't scroll down? Is it because they have too many products options to choose from? Is it because when they click a button, they're not able to actually check out? So with Quantimetric, we can tell you why you're why your users are unable to check out. And one more layer is that we quantify this. So we tell you how many users are experiencing this friction or issue. And then on top of that, we tell you how much that's costing you. So with Adidas, they're able to see that, hey, we have 20,000 customers that are unable to check out. And the reason because of that is because there's an API glitch. And if we let this continue, it's going to cost us maybe $250,000 this year. So that at a high level is what we do.
So it's a little bit like you're able to analyze, if you were, for lack of a better analogy, the exhaust of an app,
Yes.
right? The exhaust pipe.
Yes.
You've seen how I've been interacting.
Yes.
You've seen how I'm not interacting.
Yep.
And then you can put the two together and
Exactly.
say that this is not working. It's like a little bit of like app performance management on steroids is what it's sounding
on
like,
steroids.
right?
Yeah, emphasis on steroids, yeah. And I think with a lot of our users and customers, they see value in not just being able to identify why there's friction, but also in being able to understand how does this impact our top and bottom line? Because if you think about it, a large organization like Adidas or Lufthansa or Go Compare, they have thousands at any point in time of digital friction points happening. They have a massive website, they have a big app, they have 30 million users possibly on their app, and they have another 100 million monthly or weekly even visitors going onto their websites. So at any given point in time, there's an issue that's happening that's affecting users. And so they come to Quantum to not only understand what those issues are, but to also understand, okay, how do we prioritize these issues? Because if you're a developer and if you have your manager saying, let's fix this issue, but then you have the product team saying, actually, let's fix this issue, but you also have marketing team saying, actually, on the website where we send them to, there's this issue happening. How do you get a sense of how to prioritize those issues? And so with Quantum, you're able to see, oh, this issue here at the product team that they're identifying, it's actually costing us $500,000. All these other issues, yes, it's important, but this one has the biggest impact on our top or bottom line revenue. So let's focus on it. So that way we're saying, don't listen to the loudest voice in the room, but listen to the data that we're giving you.
I'd love to understand a little bit more about what actually goes wrong in an app to create this, at one level, a problem, but the other, an opportunity to fix it and generate additional revenues. So, it's like drop-offs. Yeah, that's general. Give me some ideas of the nightmare journey of an app that publishers, app owners, enterprises might not be aware of.
I think some of the specific problems that users have, and yeah, drop-off is kind of quite generic. But let's say, for example, with one of the largest, not to name any names, but to anonymize them, but one of the largest digital retailers, they have an app. And with their app, what they found was that users would be browsing through a products collection and they wouldn't check out. They might add a few things to their basket, but for some reason, they would be scrolling through, they'd add a few items, but they would never get to that checkout stage. And it's one of those issues where if you go on that app and there are no glitches, there are no errors, how are you able to identify what the problem is? And here's where Quantum is different. A lot of other tools, they kind of tell you, oh, they're unable to click this button, they're unable to scroll. And that's great info, that's great insight, and we can provide that insight. But with Quantum Metric, part of our job as well is on the service level, we provide you with business consultants and account managers. And you work with that special team to identify friction. So there are errors, which are things like when we click this button, it's not checking us out. And then there's friction, which are less obvious, and they're not errors, but it's like, oh, maybe they're not checking out because there are too many products on this app page. No tool is going to be able to tell you that, because that's diving into the psychology of the consumer. And so with Quantimetric, not only do we excel in terms of providing you with insights from a data point of view in terms of where errors happening, but we literally have qualified experts, industry experts who have worked with some of the largest brands in the world like eBay and Adidas, who can sit down, analyze user sessions and say, hey, this isn't obvious, but perhaps in your case, the reason why they're not checking out is because exactly that. There are too many products going on here. And as a result of that, it's actually hard for them to find the checkout button. So how about this? How about you reposition your checkout button and make it a sticky button? So even when they're scrolling down, the checkout button is always at the bottom of the screen. So as they're scrolling down and as they're browsing through their collection of items, they can add them. And then if they want, they can check out at any point in time. So we also solve for less obvious issues like that, not just errors. And I think that's where a lot of magic happens between us and the customers that we have.
From your perspective, what is one of the coolest quick fixes companies maybe are not seeing that they could consider that would have bottom line impact?
A channel that a lot of companies acknowledge as important is mobile. But you'd be surprised with a lot of clients that onboard with us, how kind of underdeveloped they are in the mobile sense. And I think the reason for that is that a lot of legacy solutions have been built from the ground up to focus on websites. How can we optimize the website? How can we make it easier to browse? Well, when it comes to mobile, it's a lot more difficult because a lot of the legacy solutions, they kind of just incorporate the same technology that they have on the website onto mobile. And it works, but you could get a lot further with the right tool that actually caters and personalizes itself for the mobile experience, which is why Quantimetric is so popular with airlines. So the likes of not just Lufthansa, but Korea Air Asia, and American Airlines, United Airlines, Delta, all of the largest airlines are using Quantimetric because we can power them on a mobile point of view. And so when it comes to a quick win on mobile, it really depends on the industry that we're talking about and depends on the organization that we're speaking with.
You know what you're doing. You're with the company. What's one where you're like, yeah, I never thought of that one. That is pretty cool. If more companies did this, regardless of vertical, it would just be interesting for them and maybe better for us as customers.
I always go back to the Adidas use case because they had a really simple issue where users were on the checkout page and they weren't checking out. And of course, they had tools that told them that, but they weren't able to understand what exactly was the problem within that checkout page. And so with Quantimetric, where we were able to step in and say, actually, there's an API error here. And when they click this checkout button, it doesn't deliver. And so with Quantimetric or with Adidas, what they were able to do was say, okay, let's fix this issue. They fixed it. And yeah, they saw an uplift in conversion, but it wasn't the kind of uplift that they were hoping for. And so here's where the kind of friction monologue I spoke about comes in place. So we had our business consultants come in and leveraging their experience working with the likes of Sephora and eBay, they were able to say, yes, you've had this checkout button fixed and yeah, there's an uplift, but have you considered actually putting the checkout button a bit earlier on in the journey and actually just leaving it as a sticky button so it follows the user wherever they are? So that way you can get an instant checkout as opposed to having to go through this process of, oh, let me enter my, maybe let me log in or register my user details and let me enter my postal address, let me enter my billing address, let me enter all this information. Instead, we said, why not just check out, go straight into entering payments, and then all that kind of stuff happens after, and that way you're getting buying immediately from the customer. And so that's more of a kind of a psychological factor that most tools just aren't able to capture or even incorporate. You really need that in-house kind of expertise, which most companies don't have the ability or funding to hire. So Quantimetric also offers that as well in addition.
What would be really cool is if you would like anonymize the data, but come up with some additional best practices out of this. That would be very, very cool for a lot of people.
We actually do have that, and yeah, we call it Atlas Guides. And so there are a series of guides that we've started to deliver to our clients who are onboarding with us. And that's how our clients actually get those quick wins. Because imagine this, you have a massive or a small limited budget, and you've just bought Quantimetric, and you're saying, well, how do I deliver to show to my executives that I made the right decision? Because my reputation's on the line, my team's reputation's on the line. And so with Atlas Guides, we say, hey, Mr. Retailer, here are all of the different types of checkpoints. So for example, the checkout, and here are all of the different touch points within a checkout. Here are the typical things that go wrong within a checkout. Here's an example of one of our highest, so if you think of the likes of Adidas and eBay, here's an example of a golden, and of course we anonymize it, but here's an example of a golden use case that maybe you can get inspiration from. And in this way, our customers are able to very quickly onboard with us. And I think that's part of the reason why, if you look at our company, especially within SaaS, we have about, I think it's 92% retention, user retention, client retention. So when our customers buy us, they stick with us, which is why we are so, as a salesperson, we go as far as possible to meet with the right clients, prospects, because we know that once they buy us, they're going to get value from us and they will stay with us for the long term.
And as someone in the media, in the press, although I am neutral, I am very interested. So I would say I'm going to stick around.
Yes, we love that.
Pun intended. Stick around, hang out, find out more from you guys.
Wonderful.
Totally enjoyed it, Alfred. And I love your passion as well. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
This won't be the last.
It won't be the last.